Hello, everyone, and welcome down to episode number 83 of the Down South Photo Show. Brendan not yelling at the start of the episode like he did the last few weeks. With me, Brendan Waits, here in Ocean Grove, Victoria, Australia, and the guy on your other screen or in your other ear if you are listening to the show. It's Cam Blake in Hobart, Tasmania. Hello, Cameron.
Hello, Brendan. Thank you for not busting my eardrums at the start of the show.
Yes,
I haven't noticed you yelling at the start.
I did last week, and look, I do listen to them back because I'm in the edit, so I'm editing. I'm not that. What's the word? I'm not that narcissistic. No, it's not narcissistic. What's the word when
vain? No,
that'll do. I'm not that vain that I have to listen back to every episode, but I do when I edit. And last week I noticed that I nearly blew people's ears off. I bet you a few people reach for their volume button when I yelled at them last week.
Well, that was a very monotone-ish, even type of entry. It was good.
Thank you. Thanks to the 558 people that now subscribe to our channel on YouTube.
Crazy.
That's exciting. And to all the listeners and subscribers on...
That's exciting. That was the most bland. Thanks for everyone, 550 subscribes. That's exciting.
I told you off air.
Again.
I told you off air that I just literally at work scanned 166 slides.
Yes.
So I'm a little bit flat, but I'll pick up. It's fine.
Come on, perk up a bit. Come on.
That's right. People have come here for a show.
That's it.
Give them what they want.
That's right. So 558
thanks to everyone for listening and everything.
558 subs on the YouTubes is amazing.
It is. It's great. And genuine listeners. The feedback that we get every week is strong. We get a lot of comments under the videos. We get a lot of messages coming through the Facebook page and a lot of visitors to dsps.com.au.
Hey, you. That last episode about the printing went a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I would have thought... I get asked a lot about printing, as do you, obviously. But I had a feeling it might have fallen a bit flat on the viewers. I think they would have liked something a bit more juicier, but I think it actually went really well and people resonated with it because they want to know how to print their shots. That's what they want to do. So
absolutely.
We helped.
And which just reminds me of a quick shout out to Gary, who has booked to come with us to Tasmania. He was in my store a couple of days ago and he asked me about printing.
Right.
And I didn't actually remember that our show last week was about printing. And then he came back in today and he said, "You wouldn't believe this. I listened to your podcast and it was all the questions that I had for you here in the shop were answered on your podcast."
What? So you didn't answer them when you was in the shop? No,
I did, but then I sort of re-answered them again. And then anyway, so g'day to Gary. Looking forward to having you on the workshop in April in Tasmania.
Yes. Yeah, that should be a beauty. Funny you say that. I've just been getting all the accommodations sorted out for that tonight. And
am I sleeping in the car?
We might be, but the guests won't be. They'll be sleeping in the bushes.
I'll sleep in a swag if I have to. Doesn't worry me.
No, we'll be right. We'll be right. All
right. Now we have news with regards to our photo competition that we are running that we did mention last week. How many entries so far, Cameron?
We've got close to 30 entries at the moment, and
very solid start.
I tell you what, I've looked through all of them, and everyone's coming first at the moment. It's a real trick one. There's some really good images in there. So,
well, I hope everyone doesn't come first because I really can't afford to give everyone a first prize.
Come on!
This competition is sponsored by Camera and Photo. That's right. My business is sponsoring this competition. A $200 gift voucher is up for grabs for this month's photo competition, and the theme is weather. That's not whether you'll enter or whether you won't, but weather, as in WEATHER, as in the stuff that makes cloud formations that are like behind me or surf spray that are like behind you.
The stuff that comes out of the sky.
Well, the stuff
Having said that, every shot in there, we've got some lightning shots, we've got some foggy shots.
Oh, very good.
We've got some misty shots, we've got some massive storm shots, we've got got some rainbow shots, and we've just got some beautiful late afternoon sort of moody stuff. Of course, we do have an aurora shot in there as well. But there's a bit of everything in there. So
I suppose an aurora is space weather, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's weather. And I think at the time you might have given everyone a little bit of a hint that pretty much you can enter anything in, and it'll have weather on it. So I think people have.
Well, that's right. Technically, any landscape photo is going to have weather, isn't it? So
that's right. Yeah.
But I would like to see photos that are influenced by the weather. So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
and they pretty much all are. So it's looking good.
Yeah, awesome.
Hey, you're saying that we've got 558 subs.
Yes.
I was just going back and I've figured out how to look at it because that's what I do. So our channel so far.
You're looking at analytics.
I am looking at analytics. I love analytics. You can get right into it. You probably know, but I wonder if the viewers can guess. We've done 83 episodes. How many times these episodes in total have been viewed? It's quite a lot. Do you know that? Have you looked recently?
Not recently.
Okay,
but it's quite a high number, and it doesn't match up with our subscriber count.
No, so we've got 558 subscribers, but our channel has been viewed 21,678 times,
which is pretty amazing,
and a total watching time of 5,500 hours.
Very cool.
How boring must we be after 5,500 hours?
Yeah, that's like some kind of hell.
It is, isn't it? And our number one viewed episode is that live version that we did where we had a massive influx of Indians watching. I don't know why.
Yes, well, I sort of put a little asterisk next to that and then look at the next one to see. And I think our most viewed episode is still number one. Episode one. It
is number one.
But it's been chased down by the Overland Track live from the Overland Track episode.
Yeah,
so
it is.
And I think it'll pass it. So,
and you know what? That one that we did on the Overland Track, it's had about almost 600 views on it as well. That is so popular that is trending on other types of shows about photography.
Very good.
People just love the idea, and instead of making their own ideas up, they'll just take others.
Well, it might be time to get fit and do another one then. Here we go.
Easy, Tiger.
Maybe not.
Right out. Moving on. That's enough. So Weather Comp, $200 gift voucher you're giving away, sponsored by Cameron Photo Ocean Grove. We're going to wait till the end of the month, and then all entries will be looked at, most likely over a couple of beers.
Yes.
And which will announce later on who's been donating beer. We've had a big donation this week. Or do you want to do it now?
No, we'll come to that later. Just to get people to listen all the way through. That's what you do apparently. You leave a teaser. So much with our photo comp. A little birdie told me that you and I might be in a certain northern Victorian region at around the same time. We might be able to sit down and judge it then.
We will be up there. I just thought about that. Yes. We could probably do that over a couple of beers.
Yes. Yeah. I don't even know if this place exists anymore. The Commercial Hotel in Swan Hill or something.
There is a commercial hotel in every country town in Victoria. I can tell you right now.
Or we could go to the Fed.
The Fed. It's either the Star, the Alpine, the Bridge, the Commercial, or the Fed, or the Mountain View.
The Mountain View. Yeah. No. There's a few other very famous hotel names, isn't there?
There is the Shamrock. There's a Shamrock down here. Yeah.
The Shamrock. No, the Commercial is very, very popular name. It used to be the White Swan, but that's not there anymore. That's now a Target.
Right. Should we maybe if we are doing that, should we maybe put on a live show while we could set up around a fire and have it set up while
you are really leaning heavily on the quality of Swan Hill's internet, but I'm sure it'll be fine.
That's true. No, there'd be 5G up there. We could set up a little thing around a campfire. And we could have a look at all the images, and then I'll just make it an editing nightmare by you, where you've got to put up each image as we go through. And
this has got disaster written all over it. Anyway, we'll get to that. We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Moving on.
Shall we talk about our backgrounds? I'm interested in your background. It looks very familiar to me.
It does. Let me find something.
And you know what I'll do? I'll make you full screen as well, like I forgot to do last week. There we go.
Okay. So me being full screen. So this is a shot from when was it? Saturday. I think this is from the first down south photo show workshop we did down at your area. So this is actually down at the Ocean Grove Lookout Road, or Lookout. Was it steps number 13? Is that the 13? Was it? No,
it's just above 13W. Yes,
13W. So this is actually looking back with a 600mm lens, I think it was, looking back towards the Point Lonsdale Lighthouse. And we just had these beautiful waves, bit of sunshine. And we were talking at the time about using your depth of field and your aperture to create some, out of focus foregrounds to really focus eyes on your background subject and vice versa. And this just happened to pop up. I do like this scene a lot. I'd like to go revisit this kind of scene on all different types of weather, because I reckon it's a very cool view up to that lighthouse. So I was happy with that. I don't know, it was on the Olympus with I think it was the 300mm f4, which is a 600 equivalent.
Yes.
But it was good. We had a good time down there, didn't we?
Yes, we certainly did. And fun fact, I've got a photo of you taking that photo.
Do you really?
Yes.
Am I wearing a pink jumper and a beanie?
Apparently.
Yeah.
According to Mel, who likes to edit crazy colors.
Yeah. It's a bit of a worry.
I've thrown my background, a little curveball with my background. So there we are. That's taken out of an aeroplane window with an iPhone. Now, why would I put that up there? I could not get over the way the sun lights up clouds when you're above them. Now, you very, very rarely, if ever, see that. You don't, like, unless you're droning it and or you're on a mountain or you're in a plane.
Yeah.
The reason I put up there is because that was on the plane trip to Launceston for the overland walk. I'm also blocking the microphone. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those shots that worked really well from out of the plane window. And that trip from Melbourne to Launceston, you fly quite low because you're only airborne for 45 minutes.
Yeah, that's right.
And we happened to be in the air right on sunrise, and I just could not get enough of the view. I was lucky enough to snag the window seat. Thanks, Jack.
So this is what I love about photography, especially aerial photography, because you've taken that on an iPhone flying at 600, 700 kilometers an hour. Yes. And literally pointed your camera down and gone snap, and it looks amazing.
Yes.
I would imagine there's not much you need to do with that editing, maybe a little bit of contrast, and that's about it.
Yeah, I actually got a feeling that's straight out of phone.
Or straight out of phone. And this is the thing I find about aerial photography and aerial photographers, and this is going to get some people's feathers ruffled. I find it incredibly easy to do aerial photography. I think it's one of the easiest genres to do. The hardest thing is actually getting yourself up in the plane and having either the funds or the time or the location to do it. But once you're up there and you've got your settings right, which are fairly straightforward, I feel like it's like shooting fish in a barrel.
Yeah.
And I've always scratched my head. Like, there's certainly some people out there that do some really nice aerial work, and I'm not taking it away from the work they do, but I feel like sometimes there's just a little bit too much oohing and ahhing about aerial photography, because once you're up there, and if you've ever given it a go and you've got some shots there, it's not that super hard to get nice shots up there. So there you go. There's my little 2 seconds of.
No, I like it. I don't wholeheartedly agree that it's fish in a barrel. I think there's still, you got to know your craft. You got to know a bit of composition and all that sort of stuff. But the point I would make is that when we did the workshops on the weekend, for example, what are we constantly doing? We're constantly trying to get people to come up with creative compositions, fresh compositions that work, that make your photo more appealing. By their very nature, aerial photographs are compelling. Why? Because we never see them.
That's right.
So that's, to your point. You're right. I think it has it is an easy thing to shoot once you're up there, because that's why I spend whenever people you always look out the window of the plane. Always. We're fascinated by flight. Absolutely fascinated by it.
Absolutely.
And I love it, for one. But I think it comes back to the fact that it's just so unique to see photos from the air, and it's why drone photography has exploded.
It has, yeah. I think with that though, with the cameras that we use these days that are full frame, most people are using full frame or high end megapixel shots. You can take a shot out the window at 50mm, looking down, and you can crop whatever composition you like out of it. So to me, I would suggest that compositions that are out of camera would be quite, not rare, but they'd be few and far between. There might be the occasional one that you go, wow, that out of camera, that's pretty much right. But I'd imagine that most people that do aerial photography are cropping, rotating, flipping, whatever they might be doing. to get that story out of that shot that they want to get. So yeah, again, I've always had a bit of a thing about aerial photography and the recognition it gets versus I think the skill needed to capture nice shots out of the plane. Again, I'm not saying that the shots aren't great. I just think that there's more skill involved in doing other types of photography as well, I think.
Yeah, I tend to agree. For those playing along at home, I'm just going to show you that's the original. I shot it vertically.
Yeah.
So the image behind me is actually a crop of that, but that is straight off phone and straight to that screen. So and it's I don't know, it's one of those photos. I love it. I thought it was grouse when I took it.
And I think you are absolutely spot on that. We are obsessed with flying and being above the clouds or looking down on it, because we don't see it day to day. It's something that rarely you see if you're not flying or haven't got a drone. And I think that's maybe why it appeals to so many people and why people are attracted to aerial photography.
Which is also why I think in particularly Tasmania and in Victorian high country at this time of year, you can get some awesome shots, because quite often when you get up into the mountains, you're above the cloud level. And you get blue sky above, cloud below, which is
the old cloud inversion. We get that down. We actually had it this morning. We get a big lot of fog that runs down the Derwent River down here. It's called the Bridgewater Jerry. It's a big sort of snake of fog that comes down the river. And awesome. some mornings you can get up to Mount Wellington and you're completely in an island above the clouds, which is really cool. So there's definitely something to aerial photography, and maybe we should touch on it a bit more on an episode one day. I don't know if we've had much of a just chat on aerial photography or not.
We talked about drones, and probably we've droned on.
We have droned on. Yeah, we're droning on like other shows, but moving on.
Yeah, we are. Let's start a topic.
All right, let's do it.
It just came to me, like, because I use it so much with my job, mainly for editing of photos, restoring old photos in particular.
Yeah.
Do you really need Photoshop? I get asked it a lot. I mean, particularly in my entry-level workshops, because a lot of people are beginners and they might have just got themselves the nice camera bag, the good tripod. Right, what other tools do I need? Do I need to buy Photoshop?
Yeah.
I'm going to start. I think you can get by well and truly without Photoshop.
Yeah.
The thing is, now Photoshop has become the blanket phrase for photo editing, hasn't it?
I was going to say, are you specifically saying
I am specifically talking about Adobe Photoshop.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I would say no.
No, I would also say no. Okay, next topic. So
yeah, that was easy. Yeah, great stuff.
That was
next
easy.
topic.
Yeah,
but I think I think when I went through uni, whenever it was when I was 23 or 24 or something like that, that was sort of last century. It was sort of the start of digital photography. There's definitely digital cameras out there, and there was definitely Photoshop there.
Yeah. And
Photoshop at that time was definitely used for a lot of image manipulation. So adding things, subtracting things, cloning, whatever it might be. And I think up until recently, if you wanted to do some heavy editing or manipulation of your images or things like that, then Photoshop was definitely the platform to use. But I think now with things like especially Lightroom, like I use Lightroom nonstop these days, and it does practically everything that I needed to do that Photoshop does. But having I'm someone who doesn't do lots of work on my photos, so I don't do layers and I don't do illumination masks or all that kind of stuff. I don't do any of that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure personally if you need Photoshop to still do that, or whether or not Lightroom can manage that. But I think, do you need? I think the answer is probably no.
Yeah, well, a quick Google has just, without Googling, Cam, what year do you reckon Photoshop came out?
98.
You're 10 years late.
88.
88. Can you believe that? So it was released for alpha testing by its creators in October 1988.
The bicentenary year. All right.
That's incredible.
I remember, I can picture now, I had a version of Photoshop and it had like a rainbowy feather on the front of the box, because you used to buy it in a box.
Yeah, correct.
I think that was 98 version. I think that's the one I had around uni time.
The first one I used was in 1993, and it was just after I'd bought my first scanner. So
Yeah.
I was scanning negatives and scanning prints, and then doing basic cleanup and edits on Photoshop. And then I sort of stepped away from it for ages until digital really took off. And then, so I use it a lot for my job. And as I say, it's a fantastic tool for restoring old photos. It's a fantastic tool for correcting color in old photos. So I get, like, for example, those slides that I scanned today, 166 slides. A lot of them had discolored slightly. So you're trying to return them back to the original color. And it's incredible when you just hit Control-Alt-B and it gives you the correct color balance. And it's just amazing. I mean, it's probably not 100% accurate to how it was when the photo was taken, but by geez, it makes a massive difference.
It's pretty close. I
So
guess
for that sort of thing, it's awesome.
Yeah, and I guess if you're running a photo lab, you'd have to have, you couldn't do without Photoshop, because like you said, there'd be, manipulations or adjustments or fixing that you need to do on an image. But I think for the everyday photographer out there, I guess the other thing as well, like I get this a lot on from customers on workshops is, same sort of thing. Do I need to get Photoshop or do I need Lightroom? I don't have Lightroom. I've got an old version, whatever it might be. But these days, it's hard. You can't actually get Lightroom without Photoshop. I don't think. I think it comes as a bundle on the Adobe Photographer bundle. So do you need Photoshop? No, but will it come with the package that you buy with Lightroom? And I think it's also Adobe Premiere for videos. Then you will have it. I must admit, the only thing I use Photoshop for, I'm still not, whether or not it's confident or not, I'm still not ready to print directly out of Lightroom. So I still export my Lightroom file into Adobe, and I check everything and I resize everything and I do all that kind of stuff. And then I print from Adobe to my printer. So, from Photoshop to my printer. So I don't know if that's me just not keeping up with the times. I can probably do it straight out of Lightroom, but
I would say the same print dialog box would come up in Lightroom as does in Photoshop. It's a good question. I should check because I've got Lightroom but never use it.
I should have a look. Absolutely.
And that's where Photoshop wins hands down for me as well, is because I print all day, and when I'm resizing and all that sort of stuff, I know that Photoshop works really, really well for that. And more importantly, I know it inside out when it comes to, I could literally print someone's photo with my eyes shut, I reckon. It would look terrible, but I could do it. I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it, where, it's a very, very useful tool, but you certainly don't need it. There's loads of other editing suites that are available. I mean, if you're just into cropping and maybe, as you said earlier, a little bit of contrast, fixing a bit of contrast, lightening, darkening, that sort of stuff, then there's a plethora of free software out there that you can use. Back in the day, your camera used to come with a CD-ROM that would have basic editing software on it.
Photoshop Elements.
Right, exactly. And I'd be surprised if these companies still don't make some kind of basic editing suites available online. Even, if you want to just talk about cropping and stuff, I think you can use basic Microsoft Paint will do it as well. So
that's true.
Photoshop is an absolute behemoth. It's a massive program that you can get as technical with it as you want, as you talk about masking and layering and all that sort of stuff. So we shoot passport photos at Camera and Photo.
I know, I've seen them happen. The other day, there was 6 in a row.
They just kept on coming, which is great. But quite often the background, they ask for a white background, and depending on the time of day in my shop, with the lighting I've got in my shop, it can be slightly off-colored. So quite often I'm, masking the customer's face and just fixing the background. That sort of stuff, it's amazing for. But I don't know. I think particularly for beginners, I would be giving Photoshop a wide berth, not least of all for the expense of it.
I think
You go ahead.
I was going to say, that's a good point, because I get a few customers as well who have somewhere along the line downloaded a free version of Photoshop, or they bought one in 2001 and never updated it as well. So I think there's a few things that people need to be wary of as well. So one, yes, there's an expense to owning it, which is part of that suite that you get anyway. But the other thing you need to be careful of is that if you have an old version of Photoshop and you haven't updated it, you're probably missing out on it. If Photoshop's what you use, and you haven't updated it, you're probably missing out on a heap of new features and a heap of new power that the program brings.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, people, if they're using Photoshop, you need to make sure that you keep it updated to the version of not only your software on your computer, but your computer software as well. Keep that all updated, because otherwise you're probably going to be using Photoshop, which back in the day was very, very tricky to use. It was like, now it's a bit more free flowing. I think it's a bit more streamlined. It's a bit easier to get around all the tools and stuff like that. But if you're using a version that's 5-10 years old, you're probably not enjoying Photoshop. So
that's right.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely more user-friendly, that's for sure. One thing that Photoshop does come with is this magical thing called Adobe Camera Raw, which is very, very good for editing your photos within, and for opening RAW files, editing them and saving them as a JPEG or a TIFF file.
Right.
I'm assuming Lightroom has the same thing. It's attached to Adobe Camera Raw, isn't it?
Yeah, this is where I get a little bit confused, because people say, oh yeah, I use Camera Raw in Photoshop, and I've got mates that use it as well. But I'm like, well, the same thing. That's exactly what you're doing in Lightroom. You're bringing out, like, Lightroom is almost an extended Camera Raw program.
Yes,
because you're bringing in a raw file and it's got all the tools on the side, and they're exactly the same as Camera Raw.
Yes.
Except it's in a more of a, I guess, complete suite, as opposed to Camera Raw then moving it into Photoshop afterwards. So I think they're one of the two the same things. They both use the same Camera Raw plugin, I imagine. So
if we did more research, we'd know.
But well, this is your topic. I thought you would have been all day.
Yeah, I typed it on the rundown. Like,
yeah, that's you. That's the research you should have done
30 seconds ago.
Yeah,
but I'll look more into that. But I really think the Adobe Camera Raw is fantastic. If you haven't tried that, that's worth having a look at. But again, when you used to buy a camera, you'd get your RAW editor. So they're all available from the camera manufacturers. You can download them once you register your camera.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, Olympus used to have the Olympus Image something. What was it called?
Yeah, I know.
The image, I think it was just called like Image Editor or something like that. And they all would have had them. But I think, back in the day when we were shooting film, you used to develop and go into a dark room. I think it is important just holistically that you do edit your images, and whether or not it's Photoshop or Capture One or Lightroom or what's that other one? Luke from our walk, our mate Luke. He uses, I think it's called Darktable or something. It's some weird one. He just will not let it go. And Luke, if you're listening, I know you know what I'm talking about. We've had a chat about this a million times, where he just won't let go of using that software. So there's a few out there, but I guess the main thing is, you probably should be editing your images, even if they're raw, just to clean them up a bit, add a bit of contrast and things like that. Whether or not you use Photoshop, I guess that's up to you, but I don't think you need it anymore. I think Lightroom or similar will do everything in one little package for you.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. We turned 2 years old, Cam.
Did we?
Can you believe that?
We don't act like it.
No. Well, yes, we do.
2 years.
Yeah, wow. 2 years we've been doing this. So we kicked this off during that horrible COVID-19 pandemic.
That happened on the mainland. Yeah.
That's right. It didn't happen in Tasmania. And it kicked off as an idea over a beer and a fire.
Yes.
And here we are 2 years later. So just thought I'd point that out, that we actually turned 2 the other day.
That is pretty cool. That's probably the longest thing I've done continuously.
That's right.
in the last few years.
Yeah, exactly.
When you say, all right, New Year's Eve, that's it. I'm not drinking.
New Year's resolution. Yeah.
I'm not drinking for a year. And, by January 3, you're into a beer.
That's right.
And it's good. Like we've had, like I said, and we said this to our guests after the workshops on the weekend, that, we really enjoy doing this, and we love the little community that it's bringing along, and it's slowly starting to grow a bit more. And I think the word's starting to spread out there a bit of what we do, which is great.
Well, look, let's be honest. If we right now had 50 subscribers, I don't think we'd still be doing this. But it's because we've had the growth in the channel and the interest is coming in the channel that drives us to want to do more of them. So thank you to everyone who's subscribed, liked, followed, been on a workshop with us, sent us words of encouragement, bought us a beer, etc.
So what you're saying in a roundabout way is that if we didn't have subscribers, you'd have no interest talking to me each week.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. I thought as much.
I think that goes both ways.
No, I'd be here. I'd be waiting here at 8 o'clock every midweek, waiting to talk to you.
Absolutely. Exactly.
But no, it's good. And I think,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I think, there's a lot of there's a lot of Facebook groups out there, and there's a lot of camera groups out there and stuff like that. But it is nice to have a little community of people that are all in it for the same reason, just have a good time, learn a bit about photography, get together when we can, and stuff like that. So yeah, again, thanks to everyone who likes, subscribes, or tunes in.
Which leads us into a very good segue for just to have a quick chat about, it was King's birthday that just happened last weekend.
Yes.
And the man on the other screen and myself ran a couple of Down South Photo Show workshops here in my backyard on the baaaaack Peninsula, which were very, very well received. I'd like to say we, for the majority, lucked out with the conditions. I think we had pretty good conditions.
That first day sunset was almost one out of the box. I reckon that was You don't always get that cloud formation that we got there, and
no, we did well.
Yeah,
no, I agree.
But equally as good as the second night sunset, of course, because we don't want people in the second night to think they lucked out.
Well, by the second night, we were well and truly in the flow. We had our mojo rolling. So
we did. The
first night guys might have got the better sunset, but the second day guys got us at our absolute best. It
was like the Saturday was the prelim, and then the Sunday was the grand final. That's
exactly right.
But no, it was good. Everyone had a great time. We had 2 lots of 10 people, so 20 people for the weekend. We had a great time. We talked a bit of shop. We did some great stuff at Point Lonsdale with the jetty.
Point Lonsdale has got something about it, hasn't it? It's a great spot.
I think I was actually thinking that the other day when I went through that heads on the boat, and I looked out the window to see if you're waving, and you weren't.
No.
But I remember thinking on the day, there's something about that water. It's got such a narrow entry, and it's got rips and stuff going everywhere. It's got some real potential for, crazy weather shots and crazy sort of sunrise, sunset shots there. If you got a wild day with a bit of light in there, that would be magical, that place.
Yeah, it is. It's I refer to it regularly as my muse. It's like if I'm stuck for an idea, or I'm just, I want to get out and take photos, that's my car drives itself straight to Point Lonsdale, that car park behind the lighthouse.
Yeah.
And, sunrise, sunset, middle of the day, it doesn't really matter. In winter, you can actually get away with middle of the day there because the sun's so low in the sky, as you saw.
Yeah.
It was great. And then, you've got the jetty that you can go out on. You've got the, which is quite long, and you can get a good shot looking back west towards the sunset or towards the lighthouse as well. Then you've got the lighthouse itself and all the rock formations and everything around the beach. You've got big ships coming in and out. You've got all the big swell that we're very, very grateful for. How good was that?
Well, I got a little bit excited. When you might not, because you're sort of starting to do a few of these multi-day ones and day ones.
Yeah.
But I, like every workshop I do, I always have a moment where I'm like, can I get my own camera out and just piss the customers off for 2 seconds and take a shot? So, you have that moment where you're like, okay, this is really good. And priority number one is to make sure the customers are getting the shot and, understanding why they're getting that shot. But there was a moment on the Saturday when those big waves were rolling behind that jetty from up the top there. I'm like, I wish I was sort of here on my own for about 10 minutes. I reckon I could get some really cool shots here.
Yeah.
So it was really good. And the swell was great. And that jetty, especially with the fishermen off the end, or fisher people, they give such great scale to Mother Nature. And I think that's a good tip if you're doing landscape photography. Even though we hate having people in our photographs, don't put yourself in front of a waterfall looking up to nothing, or red jacket, or standing there like a zombie. Don't do that kind of crap, because no one likes that. But if you can incorporate naturally people into your shot that creates scale against something that's got some real power behind it, like those waves that we saw, I think that's an add-on to a photo. So don't dismiss people altogether. Just push the ones out the way that are being silly.
Yeah, and hats off to the fisher people as well, because at one point I think we were rather cramping their style, having our cameras, lenses pointing out to that big swell, and they were very gracious and gave us a bit of room to be able to do it for 10 minutes or so while we're out the end of the jetty in their world. So
they probably knew who you were, Brens, being a local legend.
Yeah,
they probably that's Brendan Waits. We've been legend too.
Don't mess with this guy. We'll look after him. And then I think the big addition to the baaaaack Peninsula workshop was the Ocean Grove lookout. That actually also turned into a great spot. A bit of variation there. We got the height. We could wander down to the beach as well. So That's a great spot. If you're ever in Ocean Grove, just head to Lookout Drive, and you can't miss it. You get a beautiful view across the entire Bellarine Peninsula.
Yeah, it was good. And we had the surfers. We got some great shots with the long lens. And I think that's something, again, that works really well on any workshop, is just encouraging people to swap those lenses over. Get a long lens out, like the one I've done behind me here, looking down at the lighthouse, and vice versa. You know, we got there and it's like, okay, where do I shoot? I got lighthouse this way, beach, waves, stairs, people. You know, you can sort of do a bit of everything. So when we got the long lenses out, we got some great shots of all the surfers going crazy on the waves. And then, you know, look the other way, you get the lighthouse. And then we use some wide angle shots looking down the stairs. So I'm pretty confident that the guys on the days got some good tips and walked away with some extra skills.
Yes.
And, you know, we'll look to do some more probably later in the year, maybe. I don't know. We'll work that out. But
yeah, for sure. I think we'll probably roll out the Bellarine Peninsula one again. We had quite a few people that came down for the long weekend. They were from all over the place. We had people from Canberra came down for the long weekend to Ocean Grove.
She did.
Came along to the workshop, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, Laura's a bit of a legend, though.
Absolutely.
And her little boy, Jace.
Yes.
He was embarrassing me for a while there, because I'm like, hey, go. I'm like, hey, you go, mate. You're getting the good. He showed me the shots. I'm like, you don't need any help. What are you doing?
No, he was.
And I'm like, okay, I don't need to talk to you anymore because you're making me feel.
Was he like 11 years old or something? Isn't he?
I think he was 12. No, 11 or 12. Yeah,
11 or 12. Yeah. No, he was awesome. And we had a lot of people from country Victoria as well that had come to stay in Ocean Grove. So it was brilliant, really good. Keep an eye out. We will at some point in the near future announce more workshops down here, I guess.
Yeah, we should we'll mix it up.
Of course we will.
We'll do one down here in Tassie. We'll do 2 days down here in Tassie somewhere.
Works for me.
Yeah.
Any excuse to get myself back to your island.
Yes. Big shout out to you and your wonderful family for putting me up for the night.
Oh, that's all right.
Kicked your kids out of the bed and took over a bunk, and it was great.
Not a problem. Happy to have you there.
Yeah, it's good. Watched a bit of footy. Watched a bit of, was it the cricket? We watched the cricket as well, didn't we?
A couple of quiet beers. Played some trivia. It was awesome.
We won't go into the trivia. That was absolute bullshit, those questions that you got on that last one.
Sorry, mate. You know, it's just trivia. This brain has useless information in it. There was a very interesting release last week that I wanted to quickly talk about, and its ramifications when it comes to photography. And that is this wonderful new gadget from Apple called the Apple Vision Pro. Is that what it's called? Apple? Did I get that right? Apple Vision Pro. Basically a VR headset, if you like. I'm sure Apple won't be happy with me calling it that because it's a revolutionary new headset. There's one reason in particular that I was curious about it, and as a person that loves to print photos and actual have physical photos to look at on the wall or in printed image, Apple Vision Pro looks like it's going to take viewing photos to another dimension altogether. So basically what it does, you put a headset on and it uses augmented reality. So it'll actually project what you're looking at into the room that you're looking into. So I think what Apple would love to see is it will eventually replace your television completely. And instead of having a TV on the wall, you have a headset on your head that mimics the TV on the wall. And you can literally have basically an IMAX screen in your lounge room to view your home movies on or your photos on and that sort of stuff. So to me, that was the thing that sort of piqued my interest. Probably I saw it as a little bit of a threat more than anything, but it was interesting the way it's going to go because they're talking about, you know, resolutions well beyond 4K because the hardware can be so small and it's actually so close to your eye that the resolution needs to be quite high. Because you're going to see a lot of detail with this thing. So a fascinating development from Apple.
Yeah, so something like that, you know, a set of goggles you put on your head and replaces computer. Surely that'd be with Apple, what, a couple $100?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no more than $299, I would have thought, Cam.
Yeah, okay. So it gets released. It's already released, I think, or it comes out later this month.
No, it comes out. It comes out in the first quarter of 2024. So
2024, right?
They're hyping it big time. And yes, I have seen the price.
$34.99 US.
So probably not much change out of $5,500 Aussie for this little thing.
Yeah.
It's got its shortcomings. 2-hour battery. That's right. 2-hour battery. That's quite interesting. But apparently the battery pack, you can interchange it. So obviously they're going to make you buy a couple of battery packs. You charge one, you've got one that you're using. And of course, look, this is all in its absolute, this is the beginning of this technology. I personally can see this really taking off, but we'll look back in 10 years and wet ourselves laughing at how ridiculous this thing looks when we've got the pair of Ray-Bans that you pop on and it's all in there. So
yeah. Tell you what, do me a favor. If I ever rock up to your house,
yes,
or do something like that, or if in a couple of years' time we are sitting here with goggles on our face doing this podcast, just put a bullet in my head, because
you're done.
It looks ridiculous, stupid. Like, I get it. I think the technology is great, but if we're all walking around the world and all sitting in our houses with goggles on, what the is going on with this world?
Well, mate,
the future doesn't need to be here yet.
If you had told me 20 years ago, everywhere you would see people with these things just stand, your phone.
Yeah, but they're not strapped to their head.
No, they're not. But
that's the difference.
I agree, but we didn't see that coming. The smartphones coming, and it's going to be very interesting.
Well, you know what? It's interesting because when we were in Camera House, remember when the first phones were coming out? They're like, "This is it. It's going to destroy the camera industry.
Yeah.
There'll be no cameras in 10 years. They'll all be gone. It's a bit like AI. It's going to destroy everything.
Yeah.
It hasn't destroyed anything. Phones, yes, they're popular, but everyone still uses a camera if they want to be a photographer most of the time.
Yep.
I don't understand. I understand it. And before we came on air, I said, I've got something to add to this.
Yes.
So today I did something stupid, not stupid. I don't know what it was. Lisa she had to get some eye tests done, just a quick update and check on eye tests as you do. And next door to that was an EB game store, like the PlayStation, Xbox games. And I went in there and I've been looking around a little while ago at the VR headsets that you get for PlayStations.
Yeah.
And I went and bought one. I went and bought a headset VR. I thought the kids might get a buzz out of it. It could be pretty cool. I thought I'll give it a go. If it's no good, then I'll sell it on and do the whole thing. I do that a bit, sometimes buy and sell stuff a lot. But I went and bought this and I'm like, okay, what, for gaming, I get it. I get the gaming and, that's pretty cool because it's like a video arcade and you can sit on your couch or whatever.
Yep.
And that's fine. You put it on for an hour, play your game and you're done. You're back to reality.
Yep.
This is not reality. If you're walking around with these stupid goggles on your head, this is not going to be a reality. I don't care how many people are using it. Maybe in 100 years' time, totally. Not now. We just need people. It's just not. I'm just looking at their website now. It looks like someone's wearing a snorkel goggle.
I tell you what, it's actually mimicking.
It looks ridiculous.
Do you remember the movie Ready Player One that came out only 5 years ago?
Yeah.
It's not even that long ago. It's incredible. Even their promotional ad was a complete rip-off of Ready Player One.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's an interesting turn of events. What sort of fascinates me is the quality of the external cameras. So apparently, you can wear it and take photos and video with it. You can record your life with this thing. Now, they tried it with Google Glass. That failed miserably, mainly because of privacy. You couldn't see the camera. So I think Ray-Ban as well have come out with a camera embedded into glass that didn't take off because no one wanted to feel like a perv. Like don't want to feel like a perv, but you can walk around and look like a Martian. That's okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
And Apple, to their credit, they're great at marketing. On there, if everyone wants to go have a look, go to apple.com/Apple/Vision/Pro. Right? Yep. We can put the link in whatever. The lady, one of the models have got. She's a lovely looking lady, but she's African American by the look of it, and she's got this big afro. Yeah. So she's got these gigantic glasses on and this big massive afro. It couldn't look any more ridiculous if they tried. And I just don't get it. And okay, it's going to be the future. It's going to come along, but can we just hold off until we get a bit older?
Interesting. We'll look for the feedback in the comments about that one.
I'll give you feedback on my VR game as well.
That'd be great.
If I come on next week and I've got a big black eye or something like that because I've fallen
you walk into the wall,
you'll know why. But one last thing on that, it says there that it's got Displays the size of the postage stamp deliver more pixel than a 4K video to each eye.
There you go. There you go.
So the resolution, more pixels in 4K TV for each eye. 23 million pixels. Yeah, okay.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Interesting.
How long before they start giving us issues with our eyes or?
Well, this is the other thing. A couple of the testers who quite often get motion sickness when they wear VR goggles tried these out and didn't have the problem. So they've obviously done their homework. They're trying to make it as broad an audience as possible for this device. So that's enough about that. We'll talk about that another time and see where that goes. We'll talk about this in a year's time and when it's actually out.
When we're all wearing them.
When you and I are both sitting here with sorry, there is one last thing I wanted to say. This creeped me right out. So you put the goggles on, okay, they're opaque. You cannot see through them and people cannot see this way. What they've done is they've put a screen on the outside and a camera on the inside that films your eyes and projects them on the outside. So it looks like people can make eye contact with you through the goggles. That's a little bit creepy.
We're going to hell in a handbasket real quick on this little rock that spins around.
And I don't know how we've gone down this rabbit hole on the Down South Photo Show podcast. Let's leave it there. Everyone's favorite subject. Let me say that again. Everyone's favorite segment is back.
It is.
DCAM is here for episode 83.
It's back. Yes.
This comes to us from Pam in Auchenflower. Cam, Auchenflower.
Where the hell is that? Do you know where Auchenflower is?
Auchenflower is a suburb of Brisbane in Queensland. And it is
never heard of Auchenflower.
It's on the Brisbane River.
What is an Auchenflower? Is that a thing?
I don't know. It sounds very German, but anyway.
Yeah.
Pam in Auchenflower. Dear Cam, it's short and sweet. I like short and sweet ones. It doesn't mention me, but that's okay. Do you really need to update your camera firmware every time it is released? Pretty straightforward question. What do you think, Cameron?
Yeah, I think you do.
Okay.
Depends on, I guess you do. Depends on what cameras you have and how often they're updating them. If it's like an iPhone, it'd be every day type of thing. But I think definitely if the company's let out a firmware update, then you should update that as quick as you can. I think camera firmwares are better than the phone firmwares. Sometimes you say, look, give it a week and make sure there's no bugs in it before they iron them out. I think the camera firmwares are a bit more stable than that. But I think it's a good thing as well because some of the firmware these days has got actually updated features and new features that you can sort of download into your camera. So I would say yes, I would, as long as you're downloading it from the manufacturer directly. I think sometimes there's sort of secondary sites where they will say, oh, here's the link to the thing, and it's someone else's site that's got the firmware on it. That'd be it. But I would say, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. The 2 points I'd like to make. One, I agree with you. I think you should, when a firmware update becomes available, it'd be good to update your camera. It basically puts a new brain inside your camera with the latest technology in it. So why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
The only downside and the problem I have is now that companies like Panasonic are charging for firmware updates.
That's right. Yeah, we spoke about that.
I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's right. I think you spend that much money with these companies for your camera. I think if they find, the other thing that firmware updates can do is correct bugs in the firmware that came with your camera. So version 1 that came out might have issues with banding in certain lights, or it might be having an issue where the crop ratio isn't set correctly or something like that. They put out a firmware update and it fixes it.
Or you've got some Apple Pro visions that actually project someone else's eyes on the front and not yours, and there's some issues going on there.
Imagine how often they're going to update firmware on that thing. Can I just go off Broadway, off script for 1 second? I don't know how long we've been going for, but we're probably coming close to the end. But
sure.
Nikon. Let's talk about Nikon for a second. D7. Sorry, D. No, that's showing my age. What are they called now? Z series cameras. So the Z7 Mark II and the new Z8. Apparently, you can't use aftermarket batteries in these cameras.
No, you can't.
Now, does anyone see the irony here in that when you put an aftermarket battery inside the camera, it uses the power of that aftermarket battery to put a message on the screen to tell you you can't use that aftermarket battery? How ridiculous is that? So it's not that you can't use that battery, it's that you won't use that battery because they won't let you. They're writing software, putting software in your camera, firmware in your camera to recognize an aftermarket battery and stop you from using it.
Yep.
I don't think that sits very comfortably with most consumers, and I think most people are going to be really put off by that decision.
I'm going to make a huge prediction right here.
Here comes a call.
There's a call. I'm going to make a call. What are we? The 14th of June, 2023.
Yep.
By the time we get to 2020, by the time we get to 2030,
yep,
I think Nikon will be on the way out, if not already gone. Right. I think they do stupid things these days, like the Z7 or the Z8 or whatever that new one came out for $8,000.
Yes.
Get your hand off it, Nikon. That's a ridiculous price for it.
The fact
that they brought out their cameras with that stupid special compact flash SD card that cost you a small fortune to buy, ridiculous. Their mirrorless cameras come out and they've got one memory card slot to start with, ridiculous.
Yeah.
I've heard nothing but. I reckon I've heard more negative reviews about the Z series cameras than people happy with them. The amount of people I know that have sent them back for issues. It's ridiculous. So, yeah, it's not surprising that Nikon are doing that. I give them 10 years max and they're out of this business, I reckon.
Well, it seems to me that they're making decisions based on business rather than on photography, which will cost them in the end, because we get enough of that crap with Apple.
Yeah, we do.
With companies that, force us to use their products, force us to buy iCloud and all this sort of stuff based on, and it puts people off, man, really quickly. So Nikon, as Cam said, get your hand off it. We should have a new segment called "Get Your Hand Off It," whoever.
Get your hand off it, Apple.
That's right. Get your hand off it, Nikon, because you need to unlock that feature inside, in inverted commas, that stops people using aftermarket batteries. It's not fair. And guess what? Their spare batteries are probably $195. So stop it, Nikon. If you're going to insist on people not being able to use aftermarket batteries, then half the price of your batteries, please. You can't have it both ways.
But the question you got to ask, like exactly what you just said then, why do that as a business decision? Why say to... Here's another one for the stupidity of Nikon. Let's release a wholly mirrorless cameras and charge you for the adapter so you can use all the thousands of dollars worth of lenses that you bought. Like, get a grip. Like
that adapter should have been in the box free.
It should have been in the box free for everyone, because they've just spent 40 years supporting your company, buying all the pro lenses. You bring out this paperweight of a mirrorless camera and make them pay the thing. I don't know. In the last
we
2 or 3,
teeing off on you, Nikon, but you've earned this one.
You've heard this one. In the last 2 or 3 years of me working, I would say I would be hard pressed to see a Nikon user at my workshop that actually smiles. They don't. They just rock up and they just like, okay, what do you got? Nikon. I'm like, oh, okay. I struggle a bit with Nikon menu systems, and their response is, well, if that's all you struggle with, try doing this and try doing that. They're never happy with their camera.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm off. I'm done.
No,
I've cracked the shits. Hey, do you know what? What's that suburb called again?
Auchenflower.
Auchenflower. It's a Gaelic word meaning field of flowers.
Well, love me tender and call me Elvis.
Bet you Pam didn't know that.
No, I bet you she did not. Cam, what have you got coming up?
Beer donations.
Cam, beer donations. We had some beer donations this week.
We did.
Please tell us who.
We got a really nice donation from Jonathan, who was on the Saturday Down South Photo Show workshop.
And will be at my Saturday Seascapes and Landscapes workshop as well. Yes. Thank you, Jono.
Was he a Nikon user? No. Canon. Did he have the Canon. He had the Canon R, the new R7.
He did have an R. Yeah, that's all right. We'll tee off on Canon next week, Jono. Don't worry.
You know what? The more I think about it, the more my blood pressure comes down a bit from that Nikon rave. I think Canon are doing good. I think their cameras are nice and they support people and they do the right thing. Nikon, no. I can feel another
Nikon.
I can feel another T-shirt coming on.
Okay.
So Jonathan bought us a slab. Legend. What an absolute legend. So
superstar.
we'll get that. And we were once again malnourished very nicely. So thank you, Mel, for another donation.
Thanks, Mel.
What's coming up? I have about a week and a half off, 2 weeks off.
Lovely.
And then I make my way back over on the boat. And
you are a frequent flyer.
I am a frequent flyer. And I'll make myself available for the Flinders Rangers workshop, which starts on the 26th of June, I think. So
yeah. Still jealous and still haven't got to the Flinders Rangers, but I will. I'll get there eventually.
You know what I've been doing tonight before we got on air? The Blakes are thinking of doing a bit of a trip around Australia next year. A bit like our mate Ash.
Yeah, cool.
We're thinking of doing maybe 6 weeks going around Australia and have a look around.
Nice. You're going to get a caravan?
We've got a rooftop tent thing and a swag.
Oh, you have to?
Yeah, so what we might break it up between sort of cabin parks and rooftop tent. We did a practice run down at Port Arthur the other day, and we all fit in this four-man roof tent. But we might pack a swag just in case one of us gets annoyed with the other and sleep out there. But that's the plan. But we're planning that. But that could be pretty cool. But
that would be very cool.
What have you got?
I'm looking forward already to the different locations that we do the Zoom call on to record the podcast.
The different locations that have one bar of 4G.
Yeah, could be tough.
Is your coming up next week exactly as it says there?
Yes. So I've got the Seascapes workshop on Saturday, Landscapes and Seascapes workshop, right. Which I think I've got maybe 2 spots left for. So this goes out on Friday and the workshop's on Saturday. So if you're listening right now, there's still time to book.
Yeah. How much is it?
If you want. This one's $149. So we're going to kick it off around 2 p.m. And it's going to go right through till sunset and a little bit beyond. So quite looking forward to that. Might be 2:30 anyway. Jono, if you're listening, I'll send out you the I've already sent you the details.
Jono, it's totally fun. Give me my slab back. You guys are unorganized.
You're confusing me too much.
Yes.
And business as usual. And my wordy lordy, have we been busy down at Camera and Photo? Loads of printing. Canvas prints are going gangbusters again, which is great. Lots of scanning, as I mentioned earlier, and saving people's old photos. So that's it in a nutshell from me.
Well, you are a busy boy. I saw how busy you were the other day, and you had your wonderful daughter come in who, I'd hate to say it, but I think she probably did a better job than you did for that day when she came in.
That goes without saying. She always does a better. Everyone always says, when's your daughter coming back in? We like dealing with her more than you. And that's fine.
Like for, what is she, 16, almost 17, she said?
She's almost 17.
Almost 17. She was fantastic. Got a great bit of confidence about working in the shop. And
yes, well, she's been working in there since she was 13, so she's a ripper, that one.
She did mention the pay was a bit skimp, but
go work somewhere else then.
Go work at Macca's where they.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. All right, I guess that's it. That's the podcast. Thanks for tuning in for episode whatever it was. 83. Only 17 to go, Cam. For our, we better time this perfectly so we can have a 100th episode extravaganza.
Go to bed.
I will.
You're not making any sense.
We will see you all. Good night. Goodbye, Cameron. We'll see you. We will see you all for episode 84 of the Down South Photo Show next week. Cheerio.
Adios, amigos.
Oh,